This podcast represents the opinions of Tyler Barber and his guests to the show. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for the medical advice of a licensed counselor or physician. The listener should consult with a mental health professional in any matters relating to their health or the health of a child. This is the Mayo Lab Podcast with Tyler Barber.
Welcome back, guys, for the research report. We're here today with William Teer, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about community and kind of what the student was experiencing. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Tyler. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, let's jump right into it.
Sure.
So what do you do around campus?
Yeah, so I work in the Center for Community Engagement. My title is Program Director of Student Leadership and Financial Wellbeing. We love long job titles in higher ed, but the short of it is I direct student leadership programs on campus, one that focuses on community outreach and engagement in student leadership, another that focuses on the on-campus employment experience.
Yeah.
All of this with the mission of student success and creating opportunities for students to better themselves by getting plugged in.
Cool.
Yeah.
So will you go into a little bit of more detail about kind of what the Center for Community Engagement does, like on a day-to-day?
Sure.
And then also you mentioned the, I'm assuming it's the Bonner Leaders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll jump into all that for sure.
Okay,
So
awesome.
little brief history lesson. The Center for Community Engagement was started 5 years ago, specifically in March of 2020. And I say that because what a heck of a time to try to engage one's community, during a global pandemic, right? That was over 5 years ago now, but, as anybody recall, I mean, that's when the world went on lockdown, right?
Yeah.
And so that was prior to me joining the center. I've been there for about 4 years now. But really, we exist to elevate, sustain, and create and celebrate community-engaged partnerships across campus in our LOU community, right?
Yeah.
Lafayette, Oxford University, right? And so what that means, really in the nuts and bolts is we identify opportunities for mutually beneficial and reciprocal partnerships between folks off campus and folks on campus, right? And we do that through a number of ways, right? We have the staff and faculty fellows program that our director leads. These are opportunities for staff or faculty on campus to embed community engaged work or scholarship into classes they teach, into programs they run. We also offer mini grants where we award similar research or programming efforts to staff or faculty to fund their initiatives. And then we also have other opportunities directly for students to pursue and get involved in. So that's kind of where my area is. So I direct our Bonner Leaders program. That is a 4-year cohort-based student leadership experience that develops college students into community-minded leaders, right?
Yeah.
So there are tons of ways to get involved on campus at the University of Mississippi. And specifically many leadership opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And so our spin on that and our direction is one where we want students to understand what it means to be in community, and specifically to create lasting positive social change in community. So we do that primarily through partnerships, right? So every week of the semester, all 8 semesters of the 4-year undergrad model, we have Bonner leaders that are working paid internships with local nonprofits right here in Oxford and Lafayette County.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're really excited about it, Tyler. We launched 4 years ago in August of 21 with our inaugural cohort, and we just saw them graduate this past May. So it's a really exciting, full circle moment, to see those students who started with me as first years that now were graduating as seniors. And we even had 2 students who graduated a full year early in May, which is really exciting. But the whole experience, includes, weekly engaged work with local nonprofit community leaders here in Oxford. So we've got students that go to the Boys and Girls Club every week or help out with Leapfrog after school tutoring. We've got partnerships with Oxford School District where we're doing, tutoring and supporting students there. But then we also have other areas where our bonders are involved in too, right? Family outreach programs with Family Crisis Services and the North Mississippi Exchange Family Center. We've got students that work at the Oxford Community Market each year.
Yeah.
Mississippi Care, our community's only community healthcare clinic. And students involved in the arts as well. We've got some great partnerships over at the Yakima Arts Council, where students are working on programs over there too, including with Thacker Mountain Radio. We've had student interns there supporting those endeavors. So it's just really cool to see, Tyler, students going off campus and moving kind of beyond, our pearly gates at Ole Miss that are shined quite frequently, right? And that's figurative language, but what I love about it in practicality is the opportunity that students get to really understand what a community looks like and how they can be a part of acknowledging shortcomings and challenges that we have to turn those into opportunities, right?
Definitely. That's the best thing that you can do for
them, right?
know?
So it's the whole idea of like, okay, sure. So, this area needs some attention, or we've got some challenges here. And that's what the Bonner experience concludes with is students work on what we call capstone projects, which are capacity building projects that are designed to elevate the work that our community partners are doing in the nonprofit world in Oxford.
Yeah.
So that might be starting a new program, that might be doing a fundraising event. One of our Bonner capstone projects with Thacker Mountain Radio this past May was a fundraiser initiative for Thacker. So they planned for months and got it all together. And then another one that one of our seniors, Deontay Jones, worked on with Mississippi Care, they actually worked on a patient outreach program for folks that have hepatitis C.
Okay.
And so it's a linkage to care model where you do continual follow-up and particular types of practitioner to patient outreach.
Yeah.
And it was through Deontay's efforts with their staff member over there, Dewancia Sutton, where they actually did see a decrease in the confirmed amount of folks that had Hep C.
That's awesome.
And that was because of that additional care that they were able to provide.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the ideal model is that we're working towards.
Yeah.
We've always got room for improvement. As a new program, there's a lot to figure out. And even with the first 4 years behind us, there's we've been doing a lot of planning this summer to figure out, okay, how can we make this better, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that was kind of a long-winded answer.
No, it's okay.
But,
I'm happy you went into detail.
Yeah, for sure. And that is for students that join as first years, and it's a lot. It's a big commitment. Students are working 8 to 12 hours per week. So to kind of open this up to any students that are listening who would want to do something like volunteering, but maybe not Bonner, I would encourage them to check out our Give Pulse page, right? It's being rebranded now as Grove Pulse. You may have heard of it, but the Give Pulse platform is one where every student logs in with their olemiss.edu login credentials, and you can search and even create your own volunteer opportunities where volunteers are needed right here in Oxford and Lafayette County. So whether you need to go help out at the Oxford Food Pantry every Tuesday or Thursday, or you just want to go help out, at a one-off event at the Oxford Community Garden once every other Saturday, those opportunities are there in abundance. And we really are trying to better promote that to students because, giving back and working with can be a really fulfilling experience, not just to like quote unquote make you feel good, but to recognize that you can be a part of a positive difference by working with folks here in Oxford that are trying to make our community better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That was a great answer. I'm really happy you went into detail as well.
Sure, absolutely.
My next question for you would be kind of how do you get into it? Like you mentioned, you had some first years that just finished up. How do you get started?
Yeah, for sure. So for Bonner, that is an opportunity that is exclusively available to students that begin as traditional first-year students here at UM.
Okay.
So for that route, you apply through the special programs and scholarships application. We are in the process, the university, of giving kind of rebranding that app. It's probably going to have a new name at the upcoming application cycle.
Yeah.
But basically, you go to olemiss.edu/apply now. You apply to the university, and then you'll see the link to apply to these other programs, of which Bonner is included.
Yeah.
That's for that, and that's for if you're really looking for a long-term, I want to be in community, I want to learn more about this, I want to commit to something like this, all 4 years of college, while getting paid $13 an hour, then that's the route, right? The other opportunities, though, that I would point you all to are, again, in the university's GivePulse page, which is being rebranded as Grove Pulse. So olemiss.givepulse.edu. If you go to that website, again, you'll just log in with your My Ole Miss credentials, and that's where you can see tons of different ways to again, whether you want to go volunteer once a week, once a month, or once a year.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to look, the Oxford Animal Resource Center needs some volunteers this Saturday, or look, it's Domestic Abuse Awareness Month. Let me go help out with Family Crisis Services for their event they have.
That's really cool. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a fairly new program, but again, everyone has a profile whether you've logged in or not.
Cool.
And it's a really easy way to search for opportunities where you can give back and work with.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that's helpful about it, Tyler, is that GivePulse verifies the volunteer hours that you perform. So particularly thinking about students that are in programs like the Honors College or Lucky Day, or maybe they're in scholarship programs or student involvement organizations like sorority or fraternity life, where you have to accumulate a certain amount of volunteer hours per academic year or even semester. If you volunteer with an organization or event that's verified in GivePulse, those hours are automatically logged once you complete the activity.
That's convenient.
Yeah,
That's really convenient.
So, I mean, if anything, there's the incentive right there, right? And then the last thing I would add is just come visit us, right? I mean, we are the Center for Community Engagement. Come engage with us, right? This is a perfect example. Like, I love it when I get to leave campus, right?
Yeah.
Not because I don't like my job, but because part of my job includes just that, leaving campus and doing work in the community here, of which we are very much a part, right? All of us at the university. So we're on the 3rd floor, Lamar Hall, right across from the Writing Center. Come see us, and we'd love to connect with y'all in person there too.
That is great. Yeah, that is awesome. My next question for you is actually, you sound very passionate about community engagement. I wanted to know kind of where that came from. And
Yes, and I love that question, Tyler, and sorry to already jump into it.
You're good.
When I applied for this job 4 years ago, I told Assistant Vice Chancellor Dr. Cade Smith, who's one of my supervisors, like, Cade, I don't know if I know what community engagement is. But then I looked back on what brought me here, right? I was very involved in high school through the Boy Scouts of America program, through my church youth group.
Yeah.
We did like local mission work where we went to the county over every summer and for a week would go help build somebody's new roof or tear down a shed or build an ADA ramp, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, service projects with Scouts, it's like, oh, wait, I did that in high school. It's like, oh, wait, I volunteered in college with my fraternity. And then I did Teach for America, which is part of the AmeriCorps umbrella, where they take college grads and other folks to go work in a Title I public high school for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I may not have had the formalized language for community engagement, but I realized that I had been doing my version of that work really for years.
Yeah.
And so what's been neat and really inspiring about being able to work in the Center for Community Engagement is just better understanding what that profession looks like, right?
Yeah.
And the decades that it's been embedded in higher education, what these centers were created for, why we're here, what the mission is, what the work looks like. I have appreciated being able to have more of that, not just language, but really just foundational knowledge that informs, what this kind of work looks like.
Definitely. That's
Yeah.
cool. It sounds like you found your calling.
I think so. I think people can have a lot of different callings, but when I was in college, right, I was going through that existential question of what am I going to do after I graduate?
Yeah.
And I want to give a special shout out to all my liberal arts majors because I did political science and got a minor in Spanish. And I loved talking about issues. I loved talking about solutions. And after 4 years of political science, which is basically talking about all the problems in the world or domestically, depending on what your angle was, it's like, okay, I want to go do something now. So I was really attracted to the TFA mission. One day all children will have access to an excellent education. It's a mission that still informs my work now. And, going into the classroom, Tyler, after, 5 weeks of training in the summer of, teaching summer school to students in the Arkansas Delta, that had not had a great school year and were trying to do their best. It was really humbling, but I discovered my passion for education through the classroom, and it was 2 years, not a long time, but foundational. That continues to inform my work, right? How I develop trust with students, how I build relationships. Because the thing is that sometimes we hear, well, their reputation precedes them, and that's true. But it's not that our work doesn't matter; it does. Every single new person that we meet, we have to earn their trust, even if we've got the most outstanding resume or CV in the world. Yeah. Like we may have developed great relationships or done great programming or gotten great results before we've met this person, but when we're meeting somebody new, that's that new opportunity.
Yeah,
whether
different person,
whether they've heard of us or not, right? And I'm putting air quotes up there. To kind of de-emphasize ego. Yeah. I say all that though, kind of go back to your question. Yeah, I really like what I'm doing right now, and to me the passion is to where can I be involved in trying to make a positive difference in meaningful work, and education has been my answer for that for 10 years now.
That's awesome.
A little bit over that if I'm really doing the math right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I value education a lot as well. My mom was a teacher growing up, and now my girlfriend is also teaching, and she's been going down to the Mississippi Delta and teaching down there. Yeah, and she as well said it was humbling, and that they need help. And it's great to hear anybody that's going out and giving education to, what's the word for the communities? Like underserved communities. Sure. And
one thing that I learned in my TFA years, Tyler, and it's one that I still push myself into remembering, is that the word help is well intentioned, and also students, people, however whatever communities we're talking about, they have agency, right? Yeah. Like I in no way was a superhero or a savior, especially by coming into the classroom to help these kids. Yeah. No, they fully had their own capabilities and still do.
Definitely.
And so that's something that I really try to be cognizant of, because it's a practice of community engagement. Is we are not the experts, right? Yeah. We are here to work with. We are here to walk alongside with. Particularly in the higher education side of thing, one of the reasons that these practices of community engagement started in higher ed is that scholars and researchers realized that institutions were really being sponges of resources, and we were soaking up resources in our communities without practicing being a good neighbor, of working with and sharing resources as well. And I'm sure some people listeners are like, what does that mean? Well, think about it. If everybody is only focused about their own research agenda, their own GPA, their next grant that they're getting, while not even thinking at all about what would it look like to work alongside the people that make our community what it is, right? Yeah. It's just we're only doing it halfway, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why Centers for Community Engagement started. How can we include people in our community? How can we work with them? What does it mean to have a mutually beneficial partnership, a reciprocal partnership? That means one where all parties are involved, not, hey, can I come get a quote from you so I can put it in my book that I'm trying to get published, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I've really appreciated about community engaged work, because when you look at what our friends and colleagues and family members and whomever else are involved in the nonprofit, sector, especially in Oxford, they are the boots on the ground, right?
Definitely.
And they're the folks that address head on every day the challenges that our community faces. And so, when we're coming into those spaces, we are not coming in with the attitude that we know everything. We're not coming in with hoity-toity, scholarly approach. It's more about, hey, what can we do to be a good partner, right?
Definitely.
And so that's a big part of the community engaged practice, right?
Yeah.
I kind of adopt the good neighbor approach. That's just language that for me personally, like I resonate with.
Yeah.
But I think that can also resonate with folks who maybe haven't heard about community engagement before and maybe were curious and what that looks like.
Yeah, that's great. I think you hit on pretty much everything that you guys do, and that's awesome.
Sure.
My next question for you is going to kind of tie it back to students, but in your experience and from the work that you've done, what seems to be the biggest hurdle for students when it comes to building a community?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Tyler. And the funny challenge about building community is that it can be just as difficult as it is important, right? We are social creatures. Like, humanity has always been in community. Like, you look all through history, whether it was like cavemen in a cave or when towns and societies really started being created, communities thrived when people were together, right?
Yeah.
And so as a college student, this is really your first opportunity most in life where you are really suddenly set with starting to create your own community by yourself, right? Because think about what most college experience students' experiences are prior to college, right? Going to school, going to high school. For those that practice, going to church or another religious entity.
Yeah.
A lot of those structures and environments are dictated by whomever the student is being taken care of, right?
Yeah.
So whether that's mom or dad or auntie or grandma or a family member or whomever else, some students, have, maybe say, hey, I want to go to this school, or I want to go to this church, or I want to go to this club or whatever else. But for a lot of students, those boundaries are kind of set, right?
Yeah.
And then, in high school, sometimes your friends are who you had fourth grade or who you had fourth period English with, right?
That's me right now. I mean, a lot of my friends are from school.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? In fact, that's like pretty normal, right? And so then you get to college, and whether you went to a huge high school or you graduated with like 80 people like I did, all of a sudden now there's 20,000 people here.
Yeah.
So the challenge, I think, is starting. And then the challenge is also time, right?
Yeah.
We are so used to getting everything we want immediately. I can order almost anything in the world off of a number of subscription services, and it could be at my doorstep in 2 days. I can stream millions of songs through multiple streaming avenues, some that don't even require a subscription. We have unlimited entertainment at our fingertips between all the apps that are out there. And I think that has kind of hurt us in the sense of instant gratification in comparison to the reality of like what it means to really build something in real life, right?
Yeah.
So, to kind of get back to your question, I think the challenge is really starting, right? What are you interested in? What motivates you? What are your values? What do you believe in? And then finding others who align with that, right?
Yeah.
So, in college, this is why it's so important during those first few weeks of the semester. And I'm thinking like the fall semester for an incoming student, whether they're a transfer or a first year, go out to those different events, right?
Yeah.
Go out to the interest meetings, go out to the welcome week programming, go to a sponsored event that features a speaker you don't agree with. Go to a different religious practice that might be different than your own, particularly for the many that welcome any and all.
I think I see where you're going with this, and I agree. I think that if you show up with an open mind, that you're more inclined to meet new people. You're going to meet a lot of new people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so really in college, it is tough. I want to acknowledge that. And also, this is the only opportunity that you're ever going to have in life where you have this number of people who are mostly your age and mostly in the exact same life experience that you are. It's one of the reasons that the residential 4-year bachelor degree earning experience, I would argue, is incomparable. Like, because you've got those 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, to be exactly in a space where so many other people around you are going through the exact same thing you are. And that can be awesome for accountability, for friendships, for support. Because when you graduate, it's different. Like, you'll move to a town or city and live in an apartment somewhere where you might be in an apartment with 100 other people, but if you're not all going to the same chapter meeting or the same interest group or the same, religious organization, unless you're not intentionally practicing community building or being a good neighbor, you may not even know who their names are or who they are. So practice that in college so that when you graduate, you've got a good skill set of, okay, here's how I make friends. Here's how I build community. You just got to put yourself out there and you got to keep trying. Because where the instant gratification hurts us is that some of us feel like a failure if we're a month in, a 2 months in, a year in, and we feel like we don't have a lot of friends or we don't have a best friend. And it takes time. It takes time. But if we're just sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves in our residence hall rooms or our apartments and not doing anything, I'm not blaming. What I'm saying is encouraging to get out there and go find your people, because they're there. It just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good answer. And my next question kind of ties into that, and it's a two-parter. But would you say that it is important to know yourself before you even try to go out and find, like, because I feel like you would have to start to try to know yourself to even show up to these things that you may be interested in or you may be disinterested in. Would you say it's important to do that before you even start your college career? Like, maybe try to get to know yourself the summer before.
Great question. And I would qualify it as it's good to be open to knowing who you are, because college can be a reset, right? And I say that, again, pointing back to that college is, for many young people, the first time in their life where they have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more agency in kind of defining who they are, right? You're coming out of high school where you had a lot of things set for you. You had your class schedule set for you. Yeah, sure, you did co-curriculars, but that had determined practice times.
Yeah, it was all routine.
It was all there's tons of routine in K-12, almost militaristically, if I can make a word that exists or perhaps doesn't. But think about that schedule in K-12, right? Especially high school. Even if you're a senior and you get out of class at 11. You've got sports practices, you've got jobs, you've got relationships, you've got family, you've got homework. You normalize a 12-hour day, especially if you're working, for many students without even thinking about it, right? And then suddenly you get to college and you're like, wait a minute, I've got class for 2.5 or 3 hours each day. What do I do with all this time, right? So practice on knowing yourself, but also be open to change, be open to growth. I'm not talking about trash and values. I'm not talking about abandoning who you think you are. College is a time where now some of that can be tested, right? So if you really believe in being a good neighbor, if you really believe in loving others, if you really believe in going to fun football games, then college is now a time to really put that into practice and to be open to new things too, right? I think when I think about my college experience, Tyler, like, I had my core group of friends where many of us had similar values and things that defined who we are that we shared. Particularly for things like accountability and other areas of life. And I also started to meet friends who had different beliefs than me.
We're just completely different.
And it was really cool. And I learned more about myself by making friends with people who at first glance I wouldn't think I had anything in common with, right? And I grew more by having those people in my life, some of whom are I'm still close with.
Yeah.
And that would be my big encouragement too. It's like, don't worry if you don't have everything figured out. None of us do, right?
Yeah.
And don't let social media fool you. Don't let the filters fool you. Like, don't let Instagram or TikTok or the perfect filtered life make you think that others have it all figured out. Because like life is a journey that we all go through. And I think the mistake that students make is like trying to have it all figured out when, this is meant to be a journey, and some unknown is okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. I think perfectionism can be a hindrance at some point.
Sure.
Also, part 2 of my question was going to be, so we focused just a second ago on like knowing yourself, but now I want to ask about vulnerability and how important vulnerability is in making friends and gaining community.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And, vulnerability is a tough word because it's I think if you can be vulnerable with folks, that shows that there's trust established, but between the friends, between the colleagues, whatever else.
Yeah.
And I think vulnerability looks different for different people. One that I immediately think about that, the Mayo Lab and others involved in y'all's area is connected to is substance abuse, right? So if that is something that you struggle with, having a support group for exactly that support is so much better than, trying to bear some kind of burden on your own, right? And then I would say for listeners who that's not their journey or struggle, we all have things that we benefit from others knowing about us, right?
Yeah.
Now, does that mean every single new person you meet, you just trauma dump every hardship you've ever faced? I would say no. Just because, again, it takes time to build relationships.
Definitely.
But really solid foundational relationships are ones where you can share that stuff with.
Yeah.
And I would say for students listening, don't put a number, don't feel like there's some sort of magic number to that. I was in a fraternity in undergrad. That is a big social space.
Yeah.
And whether students go that route or not, there are so many large groups on campus at the University of Mississippi that it can feel overwhelming. And so my encouragement is to say, go join a big group, be involved with the few, and remember that realistically, it's probably only a smaller core group of folks that are truly going to be your people, right?
Yeah,
those
definitely.
are the folks that you go to worship with. Those are the folks that you talk about addiction with. Those are the folks that you listen to what they're going through and offer your support.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't do that with others. My encouragement, though, is for, I think, so many students. Well, what I've seen at the University of Mississippi is that we normalize big without realizing truly in context how big we're really talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I did a fraternity in undergrad. I was chapter president going in my junior and senior year.
Cool.
I went to a smaller institution where our chapter size was like the size of pledge classes here, right?
Oh yeah.
And I say that because I think what a lot of students don't realize is a lot of what we do here truly is some of the biggest in the country, right? And in some ways that can be pretty cool, right? But when you go to the Grove and think this is only what tailgating looks like, or this is only what social, involvement looks like, or if you go to a sorority or fraternity event, or the people's formal or everyone's formal that ASB does, and there's hundreds of people there. It's huge. That's really fun, but don't think that that's the only way to do things.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to clarify, that's not a slight to any of those experiences, right?
Yeah.
It's more so encouragement to say, dude, if you're hanging out with 3 people, that is a good time.
Yeah.
Especially if it's people that truly know you and truly are your people. So don't let the big numbers take away from what real interaction and real accountability can look like. I've always said that if you can leave college with 1 or 2 truly good friends and a degree, that's why we're here, then you did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think you're right too. I think that sometimes or most times in my experience, at least with a smaller group, there's more room for vulnerability and trust to develop, because in a bigger group, it's kind of hard to get to the guy that's on the other side of the building. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it can be difficult.
Sure.
Not to knock that those events are amazing. And
Right.
In fact, I'm encouraging my sister right now. She's about to go and start college. She's off and on about Greek life. I'm kind of happy you touched on Greek life because I wanted to mention it. But I told her, even if she doesn't necessarily know right now if she wants to start in a sorority, to rush. You know, she can meet people.
Yeah, go through it. Go meet some folks. And I would say the same thing for when Welcome Week programming comes up, or when homecoming comes up, like those big event weeks. And then same thing, just keeping an eye out for other student groups that also provide really robust involvement opportunities.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the benefit. This is the huge benefit of going to a flagship institution like the University of Mississippi. Not every college has hundreds of students of organizations.
Yeah.
Not every college has a student body from not just all over the state, all over the country, and even an international presence. So don't rob yourself of this opportunity to see so much without only plugging in, or without only limiting yourself to like one or two like occasional opportunities. You see what I mean?
Yeah, just put yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is kind of like, I guess, what you would deem as successful in your career when you see like a community. What would college success look like community-wise?
Yeah, wow, what a good question. So I think for one, I'll answer that in two ways. One is that, like, for the individual, success is absolutely situational, right? So, you know, my definition of personal success is going to look different than someone else's. Maybe even my brother's, or my best friend, or some of the students that I work with, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, I remember a friend from home who went here. You know, he graduated, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, congratulations, you graduated. You know, I'm a big education guy. I think a lot about student success. I think a lot about, you know, that our 4-year graduation rate is almost 55% of students. It should be 100.
Yeah.
But that means half of our students aren't graduating within 4 years, when the degree is supposed to be earned in 4 years.
Yeah.
So really, when we think about students that graduate in 4 years or 5 years, that is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Especially when, in the larger context, right now in the United States, it's about 38 to 42% or so of the total population that has a 4-year bachelor's degree. So that means that when you graduate from the University of Mississippi, you hold a degree that less than half of the country has.
You know what's crazy? I want to interrupt you for a second.
Please, and I'll get to the other anecdote. Please, go.
Okay, awesome. So, you know, nowadays you hear a lot that a college degree is basically a high school diploma. And that kind of, it seems that way, but when you put it into statistics like that and say that less than half have that, that is, it's not really, I don't really have a point here. I'm just saying that's crazy. That is.
Well, you do have a point, though, in that, sure, more people have a degree, like, and those rates have gone up, but in the larger picture is that it's still about less than half of the country. And, you know, another quick aside, you know, that's not the only way to be successful in life.
No,
it's not the only way to have a job or be a productive member of society. But, you know, I work at a college that this is my career. So that's just the lens that I approach this.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, back to my friend, you know, when I told him congrats, he was like, oh, thanks. But that was normal for him, right?
Yeah.
You know, because his goal was medical school, right? Which he did achieve, right?
So it was just a stepping stone. It wasn't the end goal for him.
That's right. And that in no way is to diminish folks that when they walk across the stage, you know, they're overcome with emotion because they've come through so many different obstacles in order to get there, right? But, you know, to your question about success for individuals, it's exactly that. It's individual. From my work standpoint, right? So program director, student leadership, programs and financial well-being. To me, success there is at the end of the experience that we've designed for students to participate in. Students are able to articulate themselves on what they accomplished, what they learned, and how that helped how that supported them in their journeys, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I would define that as. And I think for a successful, you know, college community is one where every single student and community member, faculty and staff, everybody else included, where every single person feels supported and feels heard and feels seen, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of where they come from spiritually, politically, economically. I really do believe that we have so much to learn from others. And I also believe that we have a responsibility to make sure that that everybody can be successful. And so, to me, the ideal version is where everyone also feels that way.
Yeah.
Not to agree with my opinion, but more so that people feel supported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy you kind of went on like two different perspectives, I guess, for that answer.
Yeah,
that was great.
Of course.
So my next question would be, how do you think that faculty, staff, even peers could contribute to the community? Like, how would you say that anyone can start right now?
Yeah, what a good question. We can all do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we live in a really challenging time. And I saw a quote recently that said, right now, in our current culture in the United States, we are seeing a lot of social unrest, a lot of anxieties, a lot of fear. And it's really especially for Gen Z and some millennials too, this is kind of the first time where we've seen a lot of things about our country kind of being put to the test.
Yeah.
I do a lot of civic engagement programming for our center. That's the other area we do. We do like voting engagement programming and voter registration education.
Yeah.
So let's go back 60 years ago, right? Like let's go back in the 1960s when African Americans did not have the right to vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's enshrined in our country's founding documents that, all men are created equal, we didn't fully get to that moment in full until the Civil Rights Act.
Definitely.
And until finally all people in our country were allowed to vote. Let's take it specifically to the University of Mississippi, right? When you think about it from the realms of like having access to education, that didn't start in our country until brave people like James Meredith integrated the university. And with courage and with bravery, stared that wall right in the face and said, no, I have a right to be here. Right. And so I say that because there was tons of sacrifices that happened during that time where people truly had to advocate for rights.
Yeah.
And what we saw was that, for some, so like then the next generation inherited that.
Yeah.
So like we inherited a world where people had the right to vote. We inherited a world where people had a right to education, right?
Yeah.
We also inherited a world where there are a lot of shortcomings and still are.
Yeah.
And I say that because if you pay attention to the news at all, or if you listen to any sound bites, things can seem really bad. Things can seem really dire, and it can be really easy to doom scroll, and it can be really easy to feel that like our individual actions don't matter in the grand scheme of X, Y, and Z power players that are doing A, B, and C, right?
Easy to feel hopeless.
Yeah, it's easy to feel hopeless, and I would argue that it can almost be normal to feel helpless. And Tyler, I'll tell you the work that I've been able to see. Not in our center, that I've been exposed to because of partnerships and awareness that our center brings has reminded me that we can't have that perspective. We can all do something, right?
Yeah.
You can go join a club that focuses on planting more trees in Lafayette County. You can go help pick up the grove after football games.
Yeah.
You can go help out at the Boys and Girls Club every day of the week if you want to. And trust me, Mr. Canoris would love having more student volunteers come help out with the over 100 students that they have every day.
Yeah.
You can give your time to tutoring. You can give your time to political engagement, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. I think communities fail when our community members or when we as community members say, that's somebody else's job.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be mayor or president. I would argue that we just need more citizens, though. And, there's always going to be a role that government has.
There's power in the numbers, though.
But there is power in the numbers, and it's encouraging, though, because when you look at so much social change that has happened in our country's history, it has been led by young people. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talk about like the founders. Again, I'm civic engagement guys, political science.
Yeah.
We talk about the founders like they were like these kind of wise old men. I mean, they were like in their later parts of life. Dude, Thomas Jefferson was in his 20s.
Yeah.
Like so many, like the people that founded our country, like were young. Mm-hmm. And look what it means like years and years after that. Like go back to the 60s, go back to Mississippi Freedom Summer. Mm-hmm. When you think about James Chaney and Michael Schwarmer and Andrew Goodman, who were college students that were murdered for trying to register African Americans to vote, they were in their 20s. Like the reason that the Civil Rights Act happened was because college students, people your age, said, we believe this needs to happen, right? Yeah. And you look across the spectrum, and there is so much involvement from young people, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can all do something. It's just about finding what do you really care about and remembering, again, regardless of what ideology you might hold, what religion you might practice or might not, or what your values are, there are others that share that, right?
Yeah.
And so don't self-isolate. When we can do work that we believe in with others who also believe in that,
yeah.
And then the best part is when you start to see that change, mm-hmm. that's when you realize that that we really can make a positive difference, and that we all have a role in doing that in our own corners, in our own communities.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it actually ties perfectly into my last question for you, but it would be, has there been a time in the last 5 years that you've been working at the Center for Community Engagement that has kind of like one instance that has pinpointed kind of why it matters to you and reminded you why it matters?
Man, yeah. Really good question, Tyler. And there are several answers that I could choose. And man, if I had to pinpoint just one, one that immediately comes to my mind is, we recently celebrated our 5th year anniversary.
Cool.
And, it's really exciting, to have 5 years, behind us and look to many more ahead. But we had an evening of celebration where we invited community members, we invited students. And to me, when I got to see my 4 graduating seniors do their Bonner senior presentations of learning and talk about with tangible results the work they've done, and how they worked with community members and how it benefited the community members, that was a really, really cool moment to get to. Because, for all those 4 years, it was not just every year, but every semester was blazing a new path forward, right?
Yeah.
I didn't inherit any programs. Like, it was very different than I used to work at the Honors College, right? Mm-hmm. They've been around for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And I love the students and staff and faculty over there. It was a very different job environment because in that previous one, I was working at a long-standing well-recognized program on campus.
Yeah, there were systems in place.
Exactly. And then with the CCE and with Bonner, we were creating a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
So to finally see a lot of that creation and work pay off, and then to hear it from community partners themselves, and that wasn't just specific to that evening, but when I can hear some of our partners say, "Hey, so-and-so's doing great," they really are such a positive part of our team.
Yeah.
Those are cool moments because there's also moments where we say, hey, we really need to talk about what we can do to make this better, or this didn't work out the way we wanted it to. What can we do next? Because a lot of this work is messy, Tyler. We learn from mistakes. We lean into those as learning opportunities. But that would be that pinpoint, was kind of reaching the end of the first 4 years of Bonner that coincided with the first 5 years of the center, and seeing those like tangible results of what, again, not just we've done, because that's the thing. We are not the only people on campus that do community engaged work. So much of our center is celebrating and elevating the work of others, right? The work of others in our community. And I've learned so much about Oxford and Lafayette County and North Mississippi and our state that of people doing really amazing things,
yeah,
then I would have like never known. Honestly, I don't think if I had worked in this center.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of what we want our next step to be, is how can we continue to raise those platforms and elevate those stories so that more folks in our community can see a lot of really amazing things that people are doing, right? Yeah, absolutely.
That is awesome. Great answer.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah,
it was great having you.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. I really appreciate being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening to the Mayo Lab podcast. Don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram. And until next time, keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for listening to the Mayo Lab podcast. We appreciate you spending time with us and being a part of the conversation. I'm Tyler Barber, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, keep the conversation going.